Do you know what a lot of parents are worried about when they see you playing all this? Reading. They think...
Because you might, this kind of stuff makes your brain go away. Like.
Finally, the showdown. Roger Ebert faces Gene Siskel on the field of Tecmo Bowl.
Let me ask you a question. If I were to ask you point blank if video games are an art form, would you say yes? Believe it or not, my answer to that very question would be a tad reluctant. I'm not even sure they can be truly distinguished as such, especially with games like this on the market.
Easy, Saul, easy.
It's all just gunfire and garbage all over the screen. It's video games like this that caused film critic Roger Ebert to call them nothing more than sports.
It seems to me that it's so hypnotic and so repetitive that it was just not good for my mental health.
So I agree on that front. But can't you say the same statement about this? I mean, it's essentially the same thing, but one's interactive and the other isn't. You see, video games may not be at that point where intellectuals in some Greenwich Village restaurant philosophize on the epistemological nature of Link's quest.
Trees do not turn into people or goddesses, and there are very good reasons why they don't, and you can't just believe absolutely anything.
However, I'd argue in many respects that they are becoming more cinematic than the medium they often imitate, and never has this been more true than with the work of Team Ico. We need to look back to the early days of cinema if we're going to talk about Team Ico. Now, before guys like Orson Welles and Alfred Hitchcock came along and redefined filmmaking to what it is today, we had stuff like this. These films didn't really aim to be high art. They were more about making you laugh or overwhelming your senses with wonder and awe.
It's in color.
But of course, we tinted the film. We painted it by hand. Frame by frame.
These were silent era films, so visual simplicity was essential to communicating the message of the film. You couldn't have scenes like this in the 1920s.
I'm just saying I need to do something substantial in order to get the attention of the clubs.
Why?
Because they're exclusive and fun, and they lead to a better life.
So despite all these limitations in the form and the content of early cinema, I'd actually argue that they ended up being more cinematic because of it. Filmmakers like Buster Keaton or F.W. Murnau had to find ways to communicate ideas visually in a way filmmaking today doesn't really accomplish. It's too reliant on dialogue to drive a scene.
Before I describe the job, I have to know you can do it.
Why?
It's not, strictly speaking, legal.
So this brings me to the work of Team Ico. Team Ico is a Japanese game development team that has made only 2 games, Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, and they are as important to video games as The General and Sherlock Jr. were to the silent era of cinema. They brought an entirely visual aesthetic to video games totally ahead of their time. But most of all, they are able to tell a story and express emotion with little to no dialogue. Unlike, But as great as those games are, I want to really take a look at the demo for their new game, The Last Guardian, which is set to release October 2016. The demo begins with no real explanation of what's going on. Who's the boy? What are these ruins? Despite these questions, we are drawn in, kind of in the same way filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki raises questions without necessarily answering them right away.
There's so many. What? They're all for me? Durga!
Oh my god, it's a giant cat! I mean deer. I mean bird? I mean, what are we looking at here? Miyazaki and Team Ico are accessing that sense of wonder children feel when confronted with the unknown, and they do so through the mythical creature design. But what else is being established here? We see the child call out to this imposing, even terrifying creature. Despite the fact that this creature is pretty scary at first glance, we immediately recognize there is a close relationship between the boy and the bird dog thing. You can feel the tenderness they share as the boy calls to pet it. And let me remind you that we are less than 2 minutes into the demo, and we already feel connection. Let's take a look at a scene from a recent Hollywood movie, The Dark Knight Rises. Bruce Wayne is meeting Officer Blake for the first time. Blake is here to inspire Bruce Wayne to become Batman again after taking off the cowl for good after the events of the previous film.
He needs you. He needs the Batman.
This scene is to establish a key relationship that will last the entire film. It lasts about 3 minutes, and most of the style is done with shot, reverse shot, with little to no variation in the blocking, camera movement, or lighting.
I don't know why you took the fall for Dent's murder, but I'm still a believer in the Batman.
A lot of this scene's power comes through the dialogue. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily, but let's try turning the sound off in this scene. Would you be able to tell what is happening? Would you feel the roots of a budding friendship? I don't know about you, but it just looks like two guys brooding over something. Now, what about this scene? You get my point. You can see the connection between the two characters instantly, and it accomplishes it in less than 2 minutes with no dialogue. This moment actually has less in common with The Dark Knight Rises than with F.W. Murnau's film, Sunrise. You can feel the connections in this film without even knowing what's happening in the plot. Let's look at another example later in the demo. The boy and the creature are trying to navigate these precarious circumstances. We feel the tension of characters on the verge of falling to their deaths. There is very little on screen to create this effect. This moment is again more evocative of Sunrise, particularly this scene. The husband is about to murder his wife before stopping himself and begging her for forgiveness. The Last Guardian and Sunrise understand how to build tension from simple visual storytelling. Once the kid and his creature brave the first jump, everything goes relatively smoothly before the animal starts shrieking at this creepy pentagram-like architecture. The game shifts from portraying the creature as this cute, cuddly thing at one moment and this feral, unpredictable monster at another. You can figure out what's happening by observation. It's totally visual. I mean, I love the Uncharted games as much as the next guy, but they could learn a thing or two from this kind of storytelling.
Wait a sec. I saw something like this on the letter. That's more like it. Okay, got a zodiac symbol. Sagittarius. All these squiggles and scratches must mean something.
It's like the main character here is hand-holding us through the activity with dialogue, which demonstrates a lack of confidence from the developer to lead us to the solution visually. Here, the developer uses emotion, set design, and blocking to demonstrate what the boy needs to do to calm his guardian down. Moments like these are exactly why Team Ico is the closest thing gaming has to the silent era of cinema. They use the limitations of the video game form to craft a stripped-down visual aesthetic that is driven by emotional connection. The child is desperate to survive, and he must bond with this potentially savage creature to move forward. Nobody explained this plot to me. I derived it purely from the visuals. Maybe contemporary filmmakers could learn a thing or two from Team Ico. How you can build fear, tension, and emotional connection without a shred of dialogue. If it hasn't occurred to you by now, The Last Guardian is not just a video game.